And welcome to the castle, everybody. This is Nightsaber Z42. So this is going to be a GM specific video. If you are a player, then I would recommend checking out the previous two videos on the vehicle character sheet as well as the player character sheet. Or if you're just curious, then go ahead and stick with this video. But there's going to be a lot of information on how to do things and some tips and tricks on how to set things up. So as a GM, my recommendation is that you're not going to be using this dice pool hardly at all. I don't really see much of a reason for it because a lot of the time, if you're rolling like for an NPC, you're going to make an NPC character sheet for that specific NPC. Or if you have an adversary or an enemy, you're going to create that character sheet for that specific enemy. This is really only used for keeping track of things like obligation, motivation, duties, moralities, or actually using a dark side point. That is the only reason why you would use this. Or you could adjust the settings as well, I guess. But other than that, there really isn't a whole lot to this dice pool. I really wouldn't even use this because if I click on 2, or if I roll dice and I forget to reset, Astra, when I have him roll, is going to roll the dice that I have. So, whoops, I forgot that he's also got upgrade. Let's take a look at that real quick. The dice pool was 2 yellows, 2 purples. He rolled 2 yellows, 2 purples, even though he only had 1 upgrade, which is where the green came from, by the way. That means this dice pool is persistent on all characters. So here's the thing. Let's say that my players are absolutely brand new, and I don't want them getting all confused with rolling the purple dice or the red dice. So let's say that I say, okay, Astra, go ahead and roll me your astrogation check. And then behind the scenes, I have them roll for that. And they go ahead and roll astrogation, and I add the purple in myself. Or let's say that it's a secret roll. It's a social roll. So like one of my players is making a charm check. Or they're maybe looking to see if the character is being deceptive, and I want them to roll a willpower check or whatever that skill is that negates that. Discipline check to see if they're lying. Then I would probably do this. I wouldn't tell them the difficulty of the check. I would just go ahead and roll the 2 red and the 1 purple. But the thing is, they're going to see that anyways. So is there really any reason not to say, go ahead and roll me that, or roll me your discipline check? Because they're going to see it. They're going to see that it's going to be a really difficult task to do. Despair. Well, I got 2 despairs in a row. Look at that. So I really don't see much of a point to this dice pool other than forcing players to update the destiny pool, clearing the destiny pool, and using a dark side point. That is the only reason why I would actually open this up and use it. Also, speaking of destiny pool, this destiny pool has been known to kind of mess up on me a couple times. Sometimes it might give the players a light side point but keep mine at 1. So just keep track of that. You can adjust it yourself. Okay, so I am the GM, and I am creating an NPC. You're going to add a character. You're going to go to character sheet, but you're not going to fill any of this out. Why? Because as a NPC, it doesn't really matter. They're probably going to die by the player character's hands. So instead, what you're going to do, you're going to go to NPC sheet. Okay, you're going to have the same amount of information, only condensed. It's going to be easy. So we'll first start off with the wounds, how much soak they have, if they're an nemesis, they're going to have some strain and possibly some defense. Let's go ahead and work with minions first. We're going to click on NPC so we can see all of the stats for the NPC. You don't really need to name it, and yeah, you don't really need to name it here. But you do need to decide if it's a minion, rival, or nemesis. So if it's a minion, I get to determine the minion group size. And so as a rule of thumb, I tend to do a minion size of 4. Anything more than that would create its own minion group, basically. You can add their characteristics. And as a minion group, they're probably not going to be very characteristic at all. And then we get to the meat and potatoes of what you're probably going to be looking at on the NPC sheet, which is their skills. Now, I do have some gripes to pick with this specific part of the character sheet. One, whoever created this really should have added more custom skills, or at least a way to get all of these skills. Because at the moment, you only really have your initiative skills, which I would probably roll on the initiative slot anyways, so it actually goes into the turn order. And it's got your combat skills. It doesn't have anything like it. You have room for 5 additional skills. Now, whether or not you use that is kind of up to you. It depends on how you play. But when you're getting into Nemesis and like you're getting into some of the Force users like Obi-Wan Kenobi or even Yoda, they have like a ton of skills. And so I'll kind of show you what I've done for that here in just a second. But you can, like, let's say I'm doing athletics. That's a bronze skill. Or if I'm doing a coordination, that is an agility skill. I can just click on agility. So if you're using a minion, okay, if you have your group minions or your minion group size listed for, minions only work as a minion group. They don't do skill checks individually. So all 4 of the minions perform the same skill check, whether it's attacking or basically doing any of those skills. You're going to click on minion. If you don't, it's always going to be 3 no matter what. Possibly. Okay. It's going to match the actual characteristic. Once you click minion, it actually makes it so it matches. So all 4 of those are doing the skill, which means the more minions in a group, the more dice they're rolling. So if I do 6, now it's adding 2 greens. So if I go back to 4, it's only going to be the 3 yellow. Okay, I can add any modifiers. So if they're persistently rolling black dice, I can put that there, or I could change that up here in the dice pool like I've stated in the player characters video. And then I click on the D20 and that is what they are rolling. So if they have any talents, talents or abilities, you can list them here. Any equipment, you can do that there. Or if they are Force users, you can add their Force powers down there. Just make sure that you use the book and page number reference in case you need to actually look that up. And you can also, if it's tied to a characteristic, you can also roll here. The only thing is, if it is tied to a specific skill, because it doesn't use actual skills, you're using custom skills. So let's say that I know that enhance is going to use my athletics. I'm going to have to remember athletics is on custom skill number 1. And boom. Force dice is at 0 because they aren't actually at force rating. If their force rating's at 2, then now I have 2 dice available to use for that. Okay, I can also view any upgrades that I have for that specific force power, but I'm getting ahead of myself. You're not going to be using that for any minions. So if I'm using a rival, okay, make sure that minions are not selected, and generally speaking, rivals have more characteristics than minions, and so they're also going to have more custom skills. They might even have things like, well, probably not adversary, but they might, or they might have something like blubber, which adds +1 soak. So they might have something like that. This is based off of a Lutrillian, by the way. So they'll have the equipment and whatnot one of the things that we haven't gone over are weapons. So let's say that I got a holdout blaster. Okay. Make sure that it's all there. Short ranged melee, and it's got the sun quality of sun setting. It's basically the same as the normal character sheet. You just click on the D20 and it rolls that, and it'll base it off of your actual ranged light. So if I'm adding more skills to that, it'll update that, and now it's got 1 yellow as well. Just remember to add in your difficulty dice. That's what the name was, difficulty dice. My gosh, it took me a long time to remember that. Likewise, let's say that I use I pop a dark side point to upgrade one of their skills. I can click on upgrade, or let's say one of the PCs uses a light side point to downgrade one of my rolls. All I would need to do is click on the appropriate upgrade or downgrade, and it'll actually do that. So if I'm upgrading one of my skills, notice that I am rolling a yellow and a green for ranged light. It's now going to turn into yellow and yellow. Likewise, if they downgrade my dice, it'll turn into 2 greens instead of the yellow. So let's say that I pop a dark side point to go ahead and make a upgrade a check a little bit more difficult. So this would be one of those instances where I could use the dice or the dice pool character to go ahead and manually say upgrade the difficulty of one of those skills. Now Astra needs to make that deception check. 3 green turns into 3 greens and a purple because of the upgrade, or the upgrade of the actual difficulty dice, which was none, so it added 1 there. Or if the difficulty is downgraded, I could also do that there. But then again, it gets into the question of why wouldn't I just tell my players that and let them do that themselves, kind of deal. I don't really see much of a use for the actual dice pool other than Destiny pool stuff. So that is how to create an NPC. Okay, so let's talk about setting up a game. You know that you're going to be using certain NPCs in your game. So ahead of time, you're going to actually go in here and create that, because every adversary, every minion, every rival, every nemesis, they are different. Very rarely are there 2 NPCs that are exactly the same with different names. So I would go in, create a character. Of course, you're not going to let your player see it. And I would go ahead and create that NPC. That way, when I have an NPC that the PCs are meeting, I can just open up their little character sheet and go ahead and click on their weapons. Or if I need them to make a skill check, I can do that. If you do not do that, then what you're going to have to do on your dice pool is basically know what their skills are. So like, let's say that I'm using, hold on, I'm gonna actually turn on one of my cameras. So let's say that I'm using the core rulebook. Okay, I'm gonna go to the back of the book, and let's say that I'm looking at the Hut Crime Lord right there. You can see his little stats right there. Sorry, excuse me. So let's say that I didn't come prepared, but I can basically make some rolls. You're going to have to know how to actually set up their skills in your head. Because remember, the way that the dice pool works, you're taking their characteristic and that specific skill. You're looking at the highest number, that's how many green dice you roll. The lowest number is how many dice get upgraded to yellow. So once you do that in your head, you can just go up here and say, okay, this Hut Lord's going to be rolling this many dice. Go ahead and roll that, and this is the difficulty, and yada, yada, yada. You're just making a lot of work for yourself in the moment, and I think that's unnecessary. So here's what I've done. This is my solution. This is something you do not have to do, but this is what I decided to do because I knew that I am playing this game long term. So the first thing that I did, I created a new game, and this game I'm never going to share with anybody. This is just for NPCs. I labeled this Star Wars FFG Adversaries. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to show you what you can do. Let's go ahead and launch this. Okay, there's absolutely nothing here. This doesn't matter. This page is specifically for this page right here, your journals page. I have basically taken every book that I own and inputted every ally, adversary, minion, whatever you want to call it. They are all here. So everything in all three of the core rulebooks is here. Everything from the era books, all three of them, because there's Rise of the Separatist, the Collapse of the Republic, and Dawn of Rebellion. Those are in here. And this little book, this bastard book right here, yeah, Allies and Adversaries. I got through chapter 1, page 8 through 34. By the way, Yoda. Should we even talk about why Yoda gets like a full page of just stats and text? This is my one gripe with the FFG books. It's just a block of text. It's not sorted out at all. So you'll see that it just has the text, and then it's got a comma, and then the next skill goes on. It's not sorted. It's not easy to read at all. I've done that with every single, or I guess most of the books that I own. I'm actually working on the last one, which is my Allies and Adversaries. I have chapters 2 through 5 to get through, I think. 4. So only 3 more chapters, but this book is like 140 something pages long. So, and there are some repeats. So I went in through here and I labeled it out. So if it's from a specific book, like the Jewel of Yavin, I put it here. That way, if I'm in this page, I can go and see that. Or if it's from the core rule books and it's already sorted, like I got all the creatures here. I tagged it, and that way I could find it. So let's take a look. Let's go to the Imperial forces. So I have a snowtrooper here. Okay. And I'm going to look at his characteristics. So snowtrooper, by the way, is basically just a regular stormtrooper, but he gets like he does have a armor, which makes it better to go out in the snow and the ice and stuff like that. So I've gone ahead and done all of their weapons. For some reason, his optic-sighted blaster doesn't have any damage or critical, which I can input at any time. I have the default of their minion group size and their wounds and their soaks. I have everything that I could possibly need, as well as their skills that they are most likely to roll. Now let's take a look at Yoda real quick, because I actually went ahead and put him out. So Yoda has a lot going on with him. Remember, we're not using the character sheet here, we're using the NPC sheet. So I have all of his wounds, his strains, his soak, his defense, his force rating, which is 8, which is the highest in the entire lineup from what I've seen. He's a nemesis. I have his weapons that he can use, his characteristics, his dice that he'll be rolling. A lot of yellows, by the way. Now, remember, you only get 5 skills. So what if you have a character like Yoda that has more than 5? So here's what I've done. I've taken the skills that are probably most relevant that I would roll or need to know about beforehand, and I've gone ahead and made them into custom skills. Then underneath, under talents and abilities, I've gone ahead and written the rest of his skills, and he's got like a ton. He basically has like all of the skills, and as well as his ranking in all of those. So he's very knowledgeable, and he's got some perception, resilience, and stealth. Okay, so now you need to know his talents and abilities. There you go. Adversary 4, Calming Aura, Improved Parry 5, Improved Reflect 5, Neiman Technique. It goes on and on. Of course, we have his equipment, and then we have his force powers, which he's got like all of them. So have fun with that. All the way from Enhance all the way down to Sense. And of course, you get the text. If it requires a skill, which Enhance could, technically it could be athletics or coordination, but it's not listed under the custom skills. So yeah, there's that. But it's all here. That way, if I need to pop him into my game, I can do this. I'm going to go to settings. And I'm going to go to, or actually, let's go back. Let's go back real quick. We'll go to our test game. Our Star Wars test game. Let's go ahead and launch that. So let's say that I have my page all set up. It's got all of my allies. It has all of my adversaries. Let's say that I need a specific, let's say I want to pull Yoda into this game. So I'm going to go to settings up here at the top right, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to experimental features. And underneath the QR code for tablet, we're going to go to transmogrifier. So on the right hand side is our page that we have, which is the Star Wars test game. And we're going to choose our Star Wars FFG adversaries page, which has all of our minions and all of that stuff. And it's going to load, and you're going to see everything that we have in that page, and our journal is here. So I know Yoda's going to be at the bottom because it's in alphabetical order. So drag to copy, and we're just going to drag him over. It will still keep Yoda in the adversaries game. But what it does is it makes a copy into our current game. So I'm going to click out of here, and let's go to our journal. And now Yoda is actually in this game. So I can use him. So what I've done, here's a real world example. You've seen that in my adversaries game, I had the Jewel of Yavin. Okay, that is a game that I am running with my players. So let's say I go to the actual game and I am looking at my page. So this is what I have. I have my player characters, my dice pool. It always has to be there. You don't want to ever delete that. I have the ship that they have, that they're using, which is a Wayfinder. This is from the previous game, or the previous season that we did. So what I will do, I will actually go ahead and, oh, I cannot archive, can I? You know what? It actually doesn't matter because all of this is under the adversaries page anyway. So I can delete it here and it will stay over there. But what I've done in the adversaries page, I've gone ahead and done the Jewel of Yavin adversaries. Now the only thing, and this is something that I really hope they add, it does not sort it out by the folders that you have. If they had done that, then this would have been so much easier. Instead, it just lists everything you have alphabetically. Oh, and if you also need to transfer pages over, you can also do that. But I've only got one page in the adversaries, and that's the start page. So everything's basically alphabetical. So what I had to do, I had to go into my book and go from page to page to see what I needed and drag it over there. At least it is alphabetical, because if it wasn't alphabetical, I probably would have pulled my hair out doing this. But once it's here, I just created the Jewel of Yavin folder, and then dragged and dropped all of the characters there. So let's say that I'm using Lando, Baron Administrator Lando Calrissian. Okay, just drag him over. All of his stats are there, and bada bing, bada boom, it is done. Okay, so let us talk real quick about. Get out of here. Let's say that I have an adversary. What I'm gonna show you something that'll make your life a lot easier. So I have this bounty hunter, Kato Liachos, who's a Nikto bounty hunter that my players fought against. I'm going to open up his character page, and he's got all of his stats there. Now, I need to have a token for certain things, but in his token page, you can see that I have, it represents the character Kato Liachos. I can show his nameplate, and it'll show his nameplate there, hopefully. But we don't want to because it's super duper long. And over here, because he's an NPC, I want to know certain stats right away. Specifically, I want to know what his soak value is. That way I can subtract any damage from it. I need to know what his strain is in case the players are hitting him with stun or something like that. And I need to know what his wound threshold is. So when you're going in and you're creating your tokens, I would recommend definitely doing this. The only thing is, if you're doing it for an NPC specific, it needs to come from the NPC value. If it goes from the regular soak value, like on this character here, it's actually going to be looking at her specific character sheet page for these skills or these values right here. If it's under the NPC, it'll actually go from the NPC sheet. So if you're using an NPC, make sure it's using the NPC value. If it's a PC character, make sure it's using just the regular soak strain wounds value. Okay, so let's go back for a second. I'm gonna go back into my other game, and let's go to our Star Wars test game. Let's create a token. So in addition to creating all of the NPCs and stuff like that, I've also have a lot of tokens, and a user by the name of Koalan on Reddit, the subreddit for SWRPG or Star Wars RPG, has created a ton of Clone Wars tokens. There's like 200 in pack 1, over 200 in pack 1, and he's got 5 different packs. So if you're just starting off, I would definitely go to the SWRPG subreddit, look up Koalan. I'll put a link to him or to his token pack 1 in the description of this video. That way you can just click on it and download it. He's actually just gone through during quarantine and made tokens for like anything you would need in Clone Wars, a Clone Wars campaign, and he's planning on doing stuff away from Clone Wars too. So he'll probably do some stuff like in the current timeline or whatever. So as a GM, I am going to, let's go with Yoda. So in my tokens page or my artwork page, I'm going to look up Yoda, and there's a nice token for Yoda. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I set to represents character. If I want to have his name show up, I can do that. Just make sure. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm also going to go ahead and change his value. So I want this to be the soak value. For some reason, I like my wounds to be not adjacent to the strain, because those are going to be big numbers anyways. I don't want to get confused. So I always put the soak value as green, the strain as blue, and there it is, and the wounds as red, just so that they're kind of separate. And you can see that he's got a little bar. If you don't want that bar there, just go to compact here on bar style, and it'll actually get rid of that. And I don't really like to play with the bars. I like to look up here and see. So whenever I click on the token, his values show up. His wounds are going to be at 0. So whenever I put in some wounds on him, like let's say he takes 2 wounds. Oops. Sorry, I got to press enter. My bad. Let's say that I have him take 2 wounds. It'll actually update it here in real time. So he's got 2 current wounds. Likewise, if I do it here, it'll also update it on the token itself. So you don't always have to go into the character sheet you can just take it from here. This will always be 2 because it's a soak value, and then we have blue as a strain. So there you go. I'm not going to do any tutorials or that on dynamic lighting. That is a whole thing of itself. I've tried that, and there are certain situations in which I would use that, but this is kind of all you really need to know for creating a token and doing all of that. And if also you need to actually set the dimensions of your token specifically, just go to right click, go to advanced, set dimensions, and click on that depending on your map size. So that is pretty much all there is that you would need to know for, as a GM, creating an NPC, creating a token, and whatnot. It's like, if you take the time and you set things up, you will be successful, is all that I can say. So plan ahead, make sure you know what adversaries you're going to use. If you don't know, then just put them all in. Take the time and do that. I have over 200 hours in this, in Roll20. A majority of that was actually just inputting these stats for these characters. Just do a little bit at a time, and eventually you'll get them all. It's like Pokemon, you'll catch them all. And so with that, I will kind of leave it there. If there are any other things that you would like to know about, any tutorial videos that you would like me to make, I am more than happy to do that. Just leave a comment down below and I will read it and I will try to get to it. So thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.